Smile Identity, an Africa-focused provider of digital identity verification solutions for Africa, has secured $20 million in Series B funding. This follows their Series A, which brings their total funding to over $30 million. Now, how does this Series B help the company to expand on what it's already doing across the African continent? Joining us to answer that question is the CEO of Smile Identity, Mark Straub. Mark, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Congrats on your raise. And help us out here. What digital identity verification tools are you providing in Africa? Are you making it easier for people to, pay for concert tickets or what? Help us out.
Sure. So what we provide is a set of software development tools that allow banks, lenders, payment companies to onboard their users and to do so quickly and to verify the true identity of those users before they give them access to, payment credentials or bank accounts or the ability to buy those concert tickets, as you gave an example of.
So does what you're doing at Smile Identity feed into cybersecurity, or is that completely different?
It does. I think a lot of what we do is about the beginning of the journey of a user into a system, whether that system is a financial services system or a ride-sharing system. There's a couple of ride-sharing companies we work with across Africa. It could even be things like a dating system. We have one company we're talking to that's onboarding users before they go on dates. So it's really about confirming that people are who they say they are before you give them access to anything. And that is how we fit into cybersecurity.
I read an article on FinTech News, and it said let's put that up. It said your company is focused on a number of projects as far as how I guess you plan to deploy the funding that you've raised. So we've got engineering and product innovation, we've got international expansion and localization, long-term commitments to identity ecosystems. Starting with engineering and product innovation, how much further can product innovation take identity verification tools? Are we talking advanced facial recognition technology here or what?
Yeah, so part of it is the computer vision or the AI, advanced, basically artificial intelligence. And so there is work that we're doing to make our artificial intelligence even better, even more accurate, and also to make it faster and to rely less on occasional human review. And so that's part of the work. But actually, a lot of the product work is also just about making it easier for businesses to use our tools. You can imagine that sometimes a bank or a financial services company is onboarding 1,000 people a day, sometimes 10,000 people a day. And right now in Nigeria, given what's changing in the economy, we're seeing some companies that are onboarding even 100,000 people in a day. And there's a lot of work that goes into handling that volume, whether it's tools for dispute resolution or tools for moving users from one part of the funnel to another part of the funnel. And so some of that software work is actually behind the scenes, but there's a lot of product work that we're doing to make it easier for enterprises to handle the kinds of volumes that we're seeing in the market now.
All right, second bullet point, international expansion. Your Africa focus, is that expansion beyond the continent of Africa?
So Africa's quite big, and to date we've really been operating in about a half dozen countries. We're now expanding to really cover the length and breadth of the continent. So we're doing work in Francophone. We're now doing work for the first time in North Africa as well. But even beyond the shores of Africa, we now have clients who want to verify some part of their user base that might be in the United Kingdom or might be in Canada. Or might be in France. And so we've now added document verification that that basically can cover the globe. And so if you've got, let's say, a portion of your customers who are going back and forth between London and Lagos, and you need to be able to verify international passports, or you need to be able to verify visas for a particular country, we can now offer those services as well. So it is really not just Africa, but also countries and parts of the world that are levered or connected to Africa.
Great stuff. Long-term commitments to identity ecosystems. And I guess following up, does that mean you're in Africa for the long term?
Absolutely. I think, but this is actually the part I get most excited and passionate about. So there's a lot of things we're doing here, and I can give a few examples if you want to talk more about them. Part of it is building data privacy and consent rules into the software that goes into mobile applications so that it's really easy for a bank or a lender to follow the data protection laws and to do so without having to read a lot of documents. They can just use our software and it automatically happens for the user. The other part is actually talking regularly with ID authorities and giving them feedback about what's working, what's not working, fraud rates that we're seeing, pass rates, downtimes, and even disputes from customers. And then beyond that, it's actually providing credits to startups that are early in their funding cycle so they can get started using these tools even if they don't have a lot of money. So we had a program we've been running called Smile for Success that actually gives credits to startups, free credits, and we'll be expanding that a lot more later this year.
Great stuff. I do want to throw you a curveball, Mark. Do you think people will one day vote via mobile phones in elections, and what would it take from an identity standpoint to make it secure?
You know, this is a really touchy topic, and I'm going to give you maybe an answer that you wouldn't expect. I think technology is incredibly powerful. I think it can do many things for us. I think when it comes to democratic elections, especially things that happen in a very finite period of time and that involve an entire country, I think it's premature to try to move everything into the digital age. And I think one of the benefits of the legacy way of doing things is having paper receipts for the purposes of auditing. So if there is a dispute, for example, in an election, you can go back and audit. Now, that's less of a concern when you got one consumer for one bank account. You know, we can always do an audit for one consumer, one bank account, one particular transaction. You can do that in a few minutes or a day. But if you've got to do a dispute for an entire nation, that can actually throw countries into turmoil. We saw that in my home country, the United States. So I actually still favor sort of having a paper backup for the things that are at the national scale for elections. But I think that there will be great advances in technology, and I'm imagining that, you know, within my lifetime, it probably will begin to happen in more parts of the world. I know it currently happens in some parts of Europe.
I like that answer, Michael. Mark, thank you. How much of what you do on the African continent depends on internet connectivity? And do African nations need to ramp up broadband penetration to improve what you're doing as far as digital identity is concerned?
Yeah, you know, I've been kind of following this for a long time because, so going back to when I first started doing business in Africa about a little more than a decade ago, we used to track the sort of productivity of engineers and how much of their time they spent trying to get a good internet connection. And we estimated back in like 2010, 2011 that like 15% of our engineers' time was getting taken up sort of trying to switch between internet connections. I don't think it's quite that bad today, but there's still regular disruptions across our team. And we have team members in 10 countries across the continent. So this is not just Nigeria or not just East Africa. This is the whole continent has these challenges. And it's related to power. But I think we are seeing some really exciting investments going into infrastructure. And that's both at the kind of undersea cable level, but also at the data center level. We're starting to see things like Amazon building AWS facilities for basically for hosted backup for data across the continent. I think that's actually really exciting, and it needs to continue, but it will make things much better in the years to come.
Mark Straub, CEO, Smile Identity. You just raised $20 million. You've done $30 million so far. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us about identity on the African continent. Appreciate you coming on.